Good morning. Welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting, and Happy New Year. It is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2018. We're in the Senator Hearing Room here at Courthouse Square in lovely Salem, Oregon, and we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So would you join us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We always begin our meeting with public comment, and we do have someone signed up today for public comment, Ken Hetzel. So would you come forward and let us know what's on your mind?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Kenneth Hetzel, and I live at 745 Harris Street in Salem, Oregon. I moved here 8 years ago, and to redefine myself, I joined the SCAN Neighborhood Association and became a member of the Pringle Creek Watershed Council. And from that, I moved up to be a board member of the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District, and the North Santiam Watershed Council extended their boundary to include Pringle and Mill Creeks, so they could assist us in getting service from the state. We were too small of a watershed council to get it. So I've been attending the North Santiam Watershed Council meetings, and I know John Caruso. He's the treasurer and has been for a long time. He's a real good guy. I recommend him to continue as the representative for the county on the Watershed Council. I don't know if you know that North Santiam is applying for their own 501c3 status. They've been a non-entity. So now they're going to become a nonprofit and be able to raise money and stuff. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was under health. Marion County rents some transitional housing, and ROC, Recovery Outreach Community Center. I've been on their board for several years. I'm a mental health consumer. And as a consumer, I want people to know that people get better, and to know where they've been and how they feel. As a peer, they can help peers, other people that are sick, get better. And ROC has got a contract that they provide peer services to this transitional housing. And I appreciate that. The more peers we have working in mental health, the better off that the system will work, that we help the system. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. No one else has signed up for public comments, so we'll move into our consent calendar. And we have a brand new second vice chair this year who is just dying to read this consent calendar. So Commissioner Brentano, it's all yours.
What if I don't remember? Just like riding a bike. Okay, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we approve our consent calendar this morning. On it, and lots of numbers. We approved 2 contracts for sale. This under finance, tax ID number R54965 and R86204, and 1 quit claim deed, tax ID R40858 and number R40859 and number R330614 and number R33029. For the 3 tax foreclosed properties sold at auction on December 11th, 2017. Also approve a quit claim deed to convey real property, tax ID number R43277 and R43278, located at 4765 Niles Avenue Northeast in Salem. Under Public Works, approve an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for $300,000 for the County City Traffic Signal Interconnect Project. Approve an order reappointing John Caruso to the North Santiam Watershed Council with a term ending December 31st, 2019, And under Sheriff's Office, approve memorandum of understanding with the Marion County Health Department to provide drug and alcohol treatment services in connection with the SOAR program. And just a little comment on these interconnects. It's a bigger project, Lancaster, and I couldn't tell, but it might be Corden Road too, but it'll make those signals flow easier and more in sync, I guess. So that should be better for everybody.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay,
Madam
we have a
Chair,
motion and a second. Yes, John.
in addition to those interconnects on the, for the lights, it'll also give us a chance to extend that out to Almsville Highway and to the Health Department and to Public Works
Very
on
good.
Silverton Road.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They are approved. All right, so we'll move to our action agenda under Board of Commissioners. The first item is to consider approval of an order revising the bylaws for the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council. So this seems to be something we do almost every month lately. It's been pretty often, actually. It's just been a few times. But we, on the Public Safety Coordinating Council, I have been chairing the council since Commissioner Milne retired. And this is my last year as a commissioner for Marion County. And we have talked about passing the baton for the Public Safety Council to Commissioner Cameron. So he suggested that this year we actually co-chair the council, myself and Commissioner Cameron. So our bylaws didn't provide for co-chairs. So even though we just revised them a few weeks ago, we're bringing them back. It's on the marked version in your packet on page 4 at the bottom under section 9 officers. It starts out by saying the council will be led by a chair or 2 co-chairs who will act as leaders of convened meetings and as the parliamentarian. And then it goes on and revises each of the sections under that where it said just chair, it adds or co-chairs. We've retained the vice chair responsibility, and that is still Don Frederickson, so he will serve as the chair if either or both Commissioner Cameron and I are not available to chair the meetings. So it's a very simple change. Bruce, you were involved with this. Anything you want to add? Or?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Just, I don't know if this is possible, but is there any confusion that if only one of you is available, that you still are chair, or does that, and it doesn't fall to the vice chair? You don't both have to be.
No, it says in the absence of the chair
Okay.
or co-chairs, the vice chair will assume the chair's responsibility. So it clearly states that
You're happy
if the
with that?
co-chairs aren't available, then the vice chair will assume that. So it sets that order.
All right, I'm kind of repeating, and it's not a major, but if there's just one of you there, that person is chair?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. And that's what's gonna happen this month.
Yeah.
all right, we'll see if it works.
You can come and.
Commissioner
and, check
Carlson.
out my perfection.
Taking a therapeutic trip to a warmer climate. So.
It's a good idea.
All right, so Commissioner Cameron, would you be willing to make a motion
Madam
to
Chair, I'll
approve
move
these?
that we approve an order revising the bylaws for the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is approved. Thank you. Next item is under Business Services. This is to consider approval of a contract for services with Idea Learning Group for $500,000 to provide custom instructional design and production services, e-learning modules for the county. And Stacy Bruman is here to describe this item to us. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Stacy Vrooman from Marion County Business Services, and I am here today to present the finalized contract for Idea Learning. On September 13th, the Board of Commissioners approved us moving forward to get a contract for $500,000 over 5 years to allow county departments to build customized instructional design, specifically e-learning modules that we can use both in departments and countywide. And so I'm here today with that finalized contract for your approval.
All right, questions for Stacy? Can you maybe just give us a little bit more information about what the modules will do and
So what it's going to allow us to do is, especially things that don't change a lot, like policies that we currently have in place, it'll allow departments and us as a county to build, to have Idea Learning build e-learnings that we can use over a long period of time. It gives us access to dollars. What had happened over several years was we'd had an RFP that gave us the ability to work with Idea. We had to keep coming back and asking for more money because departments really enjoyed being able to create e-learning modules. And so this will prevent us from having to continue to increase the contract that we already had.
Okay, and what's the time frame for this?
It's a 5-year contract.
Okay, through June 30th, 2022, okay. And where do the dollars come from to pay for this?
So the departments will be responsible for finding the dollars. Business services will manage to make sure that we're not, that all the dollars aren't getting used up in the beginning of the contract or anything like that. But the department will be responsible for finding the dollars in their budget to create e-learnings.
So these would generally be in their training budgets then?
Their training budget, sometimes they use them, mine always, the ones that I build always come out of my training budget, but I'm not sure, like the health department I know has built several, and I'm not sure how where they've actually allocated those dollars out to.
Well, I'm sure it's very transparent, Carrie. Can
Right.
you tell us about it when she comes up here.
And so then they would then be, so it would be dollars that I know sometimes there's grant money available that they've built, that they've used in the past to build them, so.
All right, other questions for Stacy? Yes.
Yeah, Stacy, how much would it cost to just do the new employee orientation like I did yesterday?
Not very much, really.
Okay, all right. Not much there to capture, huh?
All right.
I do have some questions just for like updating. How long is this good for? I mean, you make I see these modules and a price. So can you change them every year, or you gotta buy a new one, what?
So we can. So one of the reasons that we advocated specifically for Idea with over the contract is they build in a specific software that I have a copy of. So small things, like for example, I worked with payroll yesterday to make some changes that come with the new year in their module, and so I can do those pretty quickly. And they're a good company, and so like when we've had to make small voiceover changes, they do that either for free or very reasonable because we've built with them. So changes can be made to these pretty easily. We also advocate the departments and things that I've built do things that don't change frequently. So for example, we've done a lot of policy stuff. Those things don't tend to change. Our drug and alcohol policy has stayed the same. Those types of things that don't have changes frequently. Did I answer your question?
Well, you did. I'm just still, okay, so is this like you picture this for 5 years and you start over, or how?
Generally, so for example, the payroll module was built about 5 years ago, and then we just go in and make those minor modifications that come with maybe a new year. Or, like for example, several of the contracts have changed the vacation accrual. So we go in and make those minor changes. But yes, the idea is that the kind of guts, the framework of a module will stay in place over a long period of time.
So then that triggers a question in my mind. Sorry to asking you all these questions, but so if we already have a module in place and it's just a minor change, do they charge us for making that change, or do we sort of own that after
we do own it? So that was one of the things we put in the contract, is that we own all of the source materials. They send those to me when we've completed a module, and for the most part, I can make those changes, or a department, if they happen to own the software, can make those changes. And then on the occasion where we've had to go back and do like a voiceover change because they have the voice talent, they have not charged us because we have such a good working relationship with them.
So basically, this money is for new modules that you'd be building for new policies, new training.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I look back, it was September when we did that original presentation, so a lot happens between September and now.
That is correct.
To refresh our recollection here about what this was all about.
Madam Chair, I found out how much it would cost to do our NEO, $7,500, 10 to 15-minute video.
That is correct.
All right, well, Commissioner Brent.
Well, we'd have to edit you out. There's extra charge for that. So, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we do approve the contract for services with Idea Learning Group for $500,000 for a custom design e-learning modules.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's approved, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, under Community Services, consider approval of a contract for services with Ingalls and Associates for $353,397 for the Marion County Fair sponsorship and marketing campaigns. And Tamara Getch is here.
Good
this
morning,
morning. Good
Commissioners. Tamara Getch, Director for Community Services. And yes, we have a contract for your consideration this morning for marketing and sponsorship services for our Marion County Fair. In September of 17, we issued an RFP for these services. That closed in early October. Ingalls and Associates were our low bid for this contract, and they were selected. The contract includes $8,000 per year spread across 6 months, as well as a commission of 22% for cash and 15% of in-kind secured goods for the Marion County Fair. The scope of work for this contract includes obtaining, management, and fulfilling all sponsorship and sponsorship packages. So they're the ones that are responsible for helping the fair meet its budget by securing resources needed to produce the fair annually. They also do target marketing and outreach management. So for those of in the community who have gone on to the Marion County Fair website, that is a product of this contract in past years. They also do our social media marketing and management there, participate in promotional events. They go to places like the Egg Fest or Awesome 3000 and beyond. They also are responsible for TV, radio, newspaper, marketing events, and more. Also during the fair, this contract is responsible for managing any on-site media responsibilities, whether that is making sure our sponsors are getting their full packages when they arrive on the fairgrounds. And we also have a media day, so they would be intimately involved in the scheduling, organizing, and follow through for that particular event. They also do graphic design, so any of our logos, helping us with slogans, etc. They are taking care of that for us annually. And it's just as a point of interest, our slogan is for the fair is being maintained this year for a social local fund for the Marion County Fair. And then they also attend monthly meetings of the Marion County Fair Board. This is a very active fair board. There's lots of meetings in between our monthly meetings that Ingalls and Associates attend and actually coordinate. This contract, we've put in a goal of securing cash donations of $60,000 and in kind at a minimum of $80,000. So we try to put a lot of things into this contract that help the fair thrive. And we have, this is our 4th year of working with the Ingalls, and we have had a great relationship with this contractor, and we look forward to another year. This contract does expire in September of 2022. So it's nearly 5 years, 4.5 years contract, and that will get us through the next required RFP process. And any questions?
Thank you, Tammy. So how many others were considered in this?
So this was the only, if I remember right, this was the only contractor or applicant that submitted a request for this particular contract option. For our marketing, or excuse me, for event coordination, we had more than one.
Okay, so this was the only one. And they were the low bidder because
Yes.
they were the only bidder. All
Yep.
right. And then the dollars that you have it set not to exceed, so you're spreading the base amount that you give them for marketing, and then the sponsorship, it would be depending on the level of sponsorships that they.
Correct.
achieve.
So when I said the $60,000 cash and the $80,000 in kind, those by their multiplier of their percentage that's identified in the contract, 22% and 15%. That's how we got to our total contract across that period of time.
And then the additional dollars that the Ingalls managed for subcontracts with different events, that goes in the event contract.
Correct. Unless
line
it
item.
has marketing, any kind of marketing relationships, they handle it through here.
Okay, so would the amount contemplate that, or would
Yes.
we have to amend the contract?
Nope, it does contemplate that as
Okay.
well. We looked at past years and how
Okay.
much we've had to include in their contract for those services. So that's all encompassing.
All right, very good. Yeah, we've had a great relationship with the Ingalls. They've done an excellent job from what I've been able to observe, so.
Yes, very responsive,
Right.
easy to talk to, great reports.
Fairs have been just really great events. so,
Yes.
yeah. Comments, questions?
You picked the same one I did. I just, you said low bid. I was curious, so it's not a high demand item or?
Right. Well, and it, even though it's a wonderful fair, it's not the largest fair in the world, and it is a lot of work, and there are a limited number of people out there that actually do this kind of work and
Mhm.
would want to take on an additional fair, so.
Yeah, in previous years, I believe, if I recall correctly, we've only had one other applicant submission for this consideration. So there are few people who really specialize in this and
Right.
understand fairs. It's a different type of marketing responsibility.
Yeah, back in 2004, when we were restructuring the fair, I remember we had one applicant for we separated them, the sponsorship and marketing, and then the next year, when we put them together, we had two. So it's not necessarily high demand. Let's see, whose turn to make the motion?
Yeah. Madam Chair, I move that we approve contract services with Ingalls and Associates for $353,000, $353,397 for the Marion County Fair sponsorship and marketing campaigns.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Tammy. Last item in our action agenda under health, consider approval of the lease agreement with GAT Real Estate LLC for $215,000 to lease 10 units for behavioral health supportive housing. And Sydney Nestor is here. It looks like Carrie Moeller is also coming up. If you're here, you might as well come up. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sydney Nestor, Division Director with Marion County Health Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carrie Muller, Administrator, Health Department.
So Happy New Year. Thanks for letting us bring forward this opportunity to lease. It's a property on 12th Street that became newly available that we're hoping to lease to provide, I think it's, I have to double check my math, 16, housing for 16 individuals through our supportive housing program. We really see this as that over the last few years, we've developed a spectrum of supportive housing choices and options that provide varying degrees of support and help move individuals from highly institutionalized care to the most independent living that they can achieve. And we see these 12th Street properties as kind of the final step that a person could take before living fully independently. It consists of 9 one-bedroom apartments, 2 two-bedroom apartments, and a 3-bedroom house, all around a nice kind of outdoor, centralized area, and it has laundry facilities on site also. The property's been completely renovated down to the studs. We've done several walkthroughs, and it's a really nice property. And so we are anticipating that there will be services provided on site by Shangri-La for individuals who are in need of habilitative support. As you heard mentioned under our contract with ROC, they'll be providing on-site peer support to individuals living in the complex who are interested in that. We'll be encouraging and supporting individuals to be as independent as possible, meaning that they'll contribute at least 30% of their income. We have some individuals who are able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment on their own because of income that they have, but because of their history of their tenant history, their legal history. They're not able to secure leases on their own. So some of the individuals that we serve will most likely be offered to live in this property, which gets them out of higher, more supportive levels of care that they haven't really needed, but it's been all we've been able to offer them to this point. We'll be supporting individuals to those that can to pay their own utilities. We won't turn anyone away, of course, and we'll subsidize people who need the subsidy, but we're really looking at it as, again, that way for individuals to develop those final skills in order to move out independently on their own at some point in the future. We don't have we're not putting a set amount of time on the amount of time people can stay here. Some people may stay very, very long term, and some may be more short term. But like all of the supportive housing sites that we have, we try to be as individualized as possible based on the needs of the individual. Any
Carrie,
questions?
anything you want to add?
I just wanted to underscore the work that the team's doing to develop that continuum of care as we are getting a response to the USDOJ agreement to make sure people come out of the hospital as soon as possible. Now we're wrapping around services and supports. We really did identify this critical need to help bridge people further to the community. So I just want to recognize the good work and the relationships that we're building in this community with landlords. I think this property came to us because of some really critical work that the team's doing at developing those supports for individuals and assurance to the landlord that individuals in our supported housing program will get the supports they need to be as successful as possible. So it's been a great collaboration. Nice work from the team.
So I'm looking at your write-up, and I'm not sure if I heard this level of detail, but it says there are 9 one-bedroom apartments, 2 two-bedroom apartments, and a 3-bedroom house
Right.
with a common outdoor space.
Yes. Mhm.
Has its own laundry facility, has parking, and these are for people that have experienced mental illness. Have all of them been in the state hospital? Is this a step-down program, or is it open to community mental health placements as well?
The likelihood is that all were probably in the state hospital at some point in time.
Okay. But not necessarily recently.
Right,
so-
exactly. They probably stepped out to a more supportive level of supported housing. Most likely. It would be less likely that someone would come straight from the state hospital into this level of housing, though certainly not impossible if that's what was the best fit for them.
And could you, just for the benefit of people who may be listening and for the board and a refresher for me, kind of walk at a 20,000-foot level here, not a whole lot of detail. There's supported housing, supportive housing, transitional housing. So could you maybe distinguish what this kind of housing is from other types of housing? Because my understanding is supportive housing is probably our largest gap, right, that we have for people in need, that we've had a limited amount of this.
So supported housing, really the only difference really between supported and supportive housing is that in supported housing, no more than 25% of the individuals residing in the facility, the apartment complex, may be people who are being served for a mental health condition.
Oh, okay.
So otherwise, the level of supports that people receive, the rent subsidy, all of that is the same potentially, but that is the only difference. So in supportive housing, Marion County has leased a variety of properties, and all of the individuals living in the home, or in this case, the apartment complex, will be people who are receiving services for a mental health condition.
And what kind of services do they get provided in addition to their housing?
So, as we mentioned, we have a kind of a spectrum of support available in our most supportive housing sites. We have a live-in, also under our contract with ROC. In one of our sites, we have a live-in peer support who's there 24/7 to provide on-site support. In some of our homes, we have what's called 1959, which are habilitative services provided by contracted agencies, some of whom are in the home as much as 18 hours a day.
So by habilitative, you mean people that help with kind of what they call daily living
Absolutely,
kind of
right.
activities?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
if people have trouble dressing themselves or
Cooking for themselves,
Right.
shopping, menu
Right.
planning, taking their medication, daily, hygiene related. So we have kind of that level of support at the high end, down to, a new development for us is we're gonna start running some A&D groups in a couple of our supportive housing sites, which we're really excited about. And then we have other sites where we have more like a drop-in peer support, so peers are there scheduled and kind of drop-in times throughout the week. And then we have our team, which Carrie mentioned, which are in and out of the homes on almost a daily basis, doing skills training, helping people get to their appointments. And so it really varies from, again, that really high support to what we're envisioning for the 12th Street properties.
And so do these dollars come out of the mental health budget? Do we get a special grant for them? How are we supporting this?
Yes, they're coming out of our mental health budget right now. The commitment that I've made is that we'll be looking at grant opportunities over the next few years. There are more things coming out at the state level, so I'm hopeful that there'll be some opportunities. But
Questions?
Nope.
No? Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we do approve the lease agreement with GAT Real Estate for behavioral health supportive housing.
I'll second the motion.
And we have a motion and a second to approve the lease agreement. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 That's approved. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Very exciting. All right, it is just past 9:30. Boy, did we time that well. And we have a public hearing scheduled, so we will open that public hearing under Public Works. It's a hearing to consider a zone change comprehensive plan number 17-002, Video Acquisitions, Inc., Clerk's file number 5737. Joe Fenimore is here to give us the staff report. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore. This item before you is an application to change the zone from acreage residential to unincorporated community industrial, and to change the comprehensive plan designation from rural residential to industrial on a 0.6 acre parcel located at 3511 Brook Lake Road Northeast. The property is located in the urban unincorporated community of Brooks Hopmere. It contains a small metal building and a well that supplies water to a market on an adjacent property that is zoned community commercial. Property to the northeast is zoned AR and contains a dwelling, while properties further north are zoned IUC and developed with industrial uses. Property to the south, on the other side of Brook Lake Road, is zoned EFU and consists of one large farm parcel and two smaller parcels, each of which contain a dwelling. Hearings officer held a public hearing on the application on September 6, 2017, and on December 11th issued a recommendation that the board approve the request. All comprehensive plan amendments must be consistent with statewide planning goals. In finding 6, beginning on page 7, the hearings officer discusses all the applicable goals and concludes that the proposal is consistent with those goals. Hearings officer then reviewed all the applicable comprehensive plan policies and zone change criteria and concludes that the policies and criteria are met and recommends approval of the request subject to 6 conditions. The recommended conditions will reduce the potential impact on the neighboring residential property, will limit access to Brook Lake Road, and require a sign, identifying sign to be visible from Brook Lake Road. Public Works also requested a condition that additional right-of-way be dedicated along the Brook Lake Road frontage. However, the hearings officer found that there's insufficient information in the record to require that dedication and did not include that in the conditions of approval recommendation. The board has the options of continuing the public hearing, close the hearing and leave the record open, close the hearing and approve, modify or deny the request, or remand the matter back to the hearings officer. As I mentioned, the hearings officer recommends the board approve the request. I will be happy to try and answer any questions. I also have John Rasmussen here with me from Public Works Land Development and Permits section, if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Joe, just a second. Go ahead, Joe. I just would, I know the area real well, and I heard your description, but I was hoping somebody'd show a map just where we're talking about. I didn't see that in here.
So this is at the extreme west end of the Brooks Hopmere community. So if you went up River Road from Kaiser and you come to Brook Lake Road, it's one property to the west of that intersection. So it's basically the last property in the
There is a market right
so
there.
market on the corner, and this is the property just to the west of it.
Just to the west,
Yep.
so, okay. Okay, thank you.
So my question just is about the fact that Public Works didn't have enough information in the file for the dedication of the additional right-of-way. So did Public Works add any information for this hearing, or is Public Works saying, never mind?
I will let John answer that question.
All right. Just want to make sure we close that loop.
Yes.
Okay, John Rasmussen, Land Development. So the answer to that question is we were relying on the zone code for requesting the condition for the dedication of right-of-way. Some of the factors that went into that were, and I'll read them.
Well, were these factors that were presented to the hearings officer?
I did not attend the hearing, and the reason I didn't is because there was no indication from the applicant after I submitted my memorandum to planning and also forwarded a copy to the applicant that they had any issue with that. And so the hearing took place, and the applicant brought a traffic engineer in, and we were unaware that was going to happen. And furthermore, as far as I know, their traffic engineer did not submit any documentation to the hearings officer as evidence. So it's strictly a verbal argument. So
Okay, so you didn't attend the hearing.
I
You
did
were
not.
relying on the zone code. The hearings officer said there wasn't enough information. You don't have any new information to present today. So that would mean that we don't act on it. Is that a logical conclusion from what I'm hearing?
well, I did not bring any new information to
Okay.
present, so
All right,
that would be the board's option not to act on it.
right. If you didn't have any new information, then we rely on what the hearings officer
Correct.
did. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from?
Well, just excuse me,
All right.
before he's done, what would you have asked for, or what do you think is proper there? Not,
Well, Brook Lake Road west of River Road is a major collector. The special setback alone is 40 feet. Our public works standard for a rural major collector is 30 feet. So the right-of-way half-width standard is actually 10 feet less than the half-width special setback. So there would be no loss in building square footage due to the dedication of the right-of-way. It's really controlled by the special setback because of the roadway functional classification. And out there on Brook Lake, we have some deep ditches. We have some less than desirable width shoulders, and while Brook Lake Road in itself does pass traffic pretty well, based on level of service B, I believe, the actual intersection of Brook Lake Road and River Road is operating at what I believe is level of service E, and that is targeted for a future signalization. So any right-of-way, any standard right-of-way width that we could obtain in close proximity to that intersection would be very beneficial. And I don't know the applicant's reasoning for bringing in the traffic engineer. Haven't discussed it with them, but it would just seem to Public Works Engineering that the dedication of that right-of-way would not present any detraction from their proposed development, which is reported to be warehousing, but could be something of a higher traffic generator as well, given the allowed uses in the zone.
just one more thought. The way the market's situated, there's no room. They're right up against Brook Lake Road. I don't even think there's parking along the south side of it. So that has to be removed before any right-of-way comes into play anyway. That's how I'd think of it, just sitting in.
Absolutely, right, and that's a future thing, but it's been identified.
Okay.
Commissioner, did you have any questions?
Well, I'm not sure I have questions, but I need some more of a statement. I know that there's a lot of future activity on Brook Lake Road. There's, I mean, it's crowded now, all the way from I-5, either direction, when you get off there at certain times of the day. I know we are, from economic development standpoint, are looking at what's that look like in the future. How do we make sure it's done in a planning way? So I'm kind of a little disappointed that we didn't show up at a hearing that would have preserved what Public Works thinks is right away that we need. So
All right.
that's all I'm going to say.
So I'm looking at page 19 of the hearings officer's report, and she says, under Marion County, I think C is a code, right? 17-123-070B1, conditions may be imposed to grant rights of way for public roads. But then she goes on to say, to impose conditions on a zone change, additional findings must be adopted. And it's also led to considerable case law on the subject. And so she cites, I don't know if you said call it Nolan versus California Coastal Commission, also Dolan versus City of Tigard. And she goes through what that case law talked about. And then the last paragraph before number 15 on the next page says, Marion County Code 17-123-070A is not met as to the right-of-way dedication, but Marion County Public Works did not indicate the application should be denied based on safety or other concerns if dedication is not required, and did not require a TIA, that's a traffic
Impact analysis.
impact analysis as suggested under the BHCP. What is that?
Brooks Hotmer Community Plan.
Okay, if land use changes result in more than minimal added traffic trips, as such, an adequate transportation network is in place to serve the subject zone change, and as shown above, other public facilities and services are available will be put in place. And then went on to say that it was satisfied. So I would want us to be cautious that if we're not providing the appropriate nexus, then we're violating the case law standards. Bruce is nodding. Do you want to add anything to the factors?
No, Madam Chair, I think that's an accurate statement that you need to have the findings that connect to that nexus.
Right, so it can't be just something off the cuff that we go, gee, we wish
We
we
want
would.
this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you need more specifics.
Yes.
So in the context of the zone change or any land use case, it can be said that it's true that the burden is on the governing body to provide the nexus. And we don't get too deep into that. We generally rely on what's in the zone code. Obviously, in this case, if it's warehousing, mini warehousing, it's not a high generator. But let me just say that when a property is being commercially developed, and they are, commercial buildings going up, commercial use, we require a site plan, a full civil site plan review, and of course an access permit. And under our access ordinance, we look at frontage, the need for any frontage improvements, et cetera, what right-of-way, et cetera. So when this comes in the door for a building permit, we're going to have another crack at it. At least from our perspective, we are fully, authorized to require those kinds of things, including right-of-way dedication. So it's our condition, requested condition in the land use case was really more, I put it in there more as a courtesy from a timing perspective. In other words, I put in there that they should do that before they come in for building permits. Reason being is because, the property gets sold, the developer comes in, they don't have a copy of the land use case. They're going full guns on getting the building designed and a contractor lined up, maybe a design build. And then when we tell them, you have to amend your site plan to dedicate the right-of-way, they have to send it back to the drawing board, back to the architect. And so if it gets done before the building permits come in, it's more of a benefit to the developer or the property owner.
So Bruce, what I thought I heard him say was that even if it's not a condition in the land use, that they can require it as part of the building permit. Is that true?
Yeah, generally, yes. They can require certain standards be met, but you need to tie into again, it's not something that's just made up, but it's part of your process that's tied into the code and things like that. There are limits, but that is something that can be connected to the building permit process.
Well, we can hear more from the applicant on their thoughts about that. All right, any other questions? Thank you. So we have two people signed up for the hearing. Are you together? Do you want to come up? James Woodry, Jeff Tross. Unless you have a PowerPoint presentation, if you would sit over on the side there, that would be great. State your names for the record, please, and give us your comments.
We will do that. I'll begin with my name and address. Commissioners, good morning. My name is Jeff Tross, Land Use Planning Consultant, Tross Consulting, Inc., 1720 Liberty Street, Southeast, Salem, 97302.
Thank you. My name is James Woodry. I'm the owner of the property. My address is 534 Castle Glen Lane, North Kaiser, Oregon, 97303.
And we're pleased to have reached this point in our process, especially with a favorable recommendation from the hearings officer before you this morning. This case is relatively minor in its effect, but it's a complex procedure, as you can see. This proposal is to rezone a small parcel, it's a little over half an acre, 0.6 or 0.6 of an acre, from its current zone in the Brooks-Hopmer Community Plan, which is AR, which is a residential zone, to the IUC zone, which is the unincorporated community industrial zone. The property is surrounded by non-residential property. It's bordered on the west and the north by property that's already zoned IUC, and the property immediately on the east is the Hopmer store, which is in the community commercial zone. So this is the only residentially zoned parcel that fronts on Brook Lake Road, east of the River Road intersection, and within the Brooks-Hopmer Community Plan. The proposed use is a self-storage facility, which by its nature will be limited in its extent, first because the property is only 0.6 of an acre, and then the IUC zone has a 40% lot coverage limitation, so the square footage of any commercial building or any use on the property, such as self-storage, is limited to 40% of the total lot area, which in this case is a little over 10,000 square feet. So here we have a parcel zoned for residential use that's surrounded by industrial and commercial property. There's no residence on the property. There's an old storage building there, and that's about all. It's never been in residential use as far as we know, and changing the zoning from acreage residential to IUC is consistent with the adjacent properties on all sides. Now, I'd like to spend a little bit of time responding to the Public Works Department request for a dedication of right-of-way along the Brook Lake Road frontage. Certainly there are some factual errors and then some important points, some of which have already been discussed. First off, the hearings officer, aside from the dedication of right-of-way question, assigned 6 conditions of approval to this property. We have no problems with any of them. They deal with the development of the property itself, and they are all in keeping with the development plans that the applicant has. Now, with regards to the proposed dedication of right-of-way, or the requested dedication of right-of-way, we did object to that at the public hearing. First off, we did not have a traffic engineer present at the public hearing. We had submitted, as part of our application, a report from a traffic engineer who evaluated the potential traffic impact of a self-storage facility on this property and found that it would have no significant impact on the transportation system. Beyond that, the hearings officer, we believe, was quite correct in comparing the Public Works Department request for a right-of-way dedication to the standards and requirements that would apply. The hearings officer found that in this case, Public Works Department had not met their burden of proof for justifying why the dedication of right-of-way was required. We submitted an additional document to the hearings officer at the public hearing. That information compared the proposed square footage of the self-storage facility to the traffic impact that would be generated according to the data that had been provided by our traffic engineer in the original application submittal. And to summarize that very briefly, it's determined that the traffic impact, the 24-hour ADT, or average daily traffic, that would be expected from a self-storage facility of the square footage that could be permitted on this property under the limitations of the IUC zone would be about 17 vehicle trips per day. That's over a 24-hour day. Now, it's necessary to compare that to the average traffic that's already present on the transportation system. And according to the county zone data, at the intersection of Brook Lake and River Road, the average daily traffic is approximately 11,678 trips per day. So comparing the additional 17 trips that a self-storage facility might generate, it results in an increase of 0.15%, far less than 1% additional traffic per day that this self-storage proposal could generate, according to the traffic engineer's estimated impact of the amount of traffic that's generated by a self-storage facility. There simply isn't any rational basis for requiring the property owner to dedicate property for additional right-of-way at this location. There's a far higher traffic generator adjacent, which is the store right on the corner, even the surrounding industrial uses, because they occupy larger parcels, generate more traffic already than this project would. So the hearings officer was correct in finding that it's not sufficient for County Public Works to rely on an ordinance which allows them to request a condition of approval. You have to meet other standards, which she described in detail, Commissioner Carlson, as you reviewed in your comments, and we believe that's the correct decision. So here we have a small property, a very low impact use to make use of an unused property that is not used for any residential purpose, although it's zoned that way. This fits with the land use pattern. It addresses all of the policies of the Brooks-Hopner Community Plan, as well as the criteria for a comp plan change and zone change, state goals, and so forth. A lot of regulatory process for a very small, low-impact project, and we would hope that you would look favorably on this and adopt the hearings officer's decision.
Mr. Tross, can I just ask a follow-up question, though, on the piece about the right-of-way?
Sure.
What is your response to the statement that we just heard, that when the applicant then comes in for the building permit, the code kicks in, and no matter what we do here today, the right-of-way would need to be dedicated? Can you, in your expertise as a land use consultant, can you give me your perspective on that?
Well, sure. I think it's double jeopardy. I think it's inappropriate. If a public hearing is held to determine what sorts of public facilities or dedications might be necessary in keeping with the impact of a proposal, and if that is found to be inappropriate, or the requested dedication, because the impact simply does not justify the request for additional dedication, I think it's a great disservice to the property owner to say, well, if we don't get you now, we're going to get you later. And if we can't do it one way, we have another way to do it. It's not fair to the property owner. It doesn't make sense in terms of the way the process ought to work. This is a very transparent and upfront process where an applicant makes a proposal, addresses all the rules, is confronted with a request for conditions of approval, one of which in this case is found by the hearings officer to be unjustified and not necessary, only to hear that at some point in the near future, when he comes in for a building permit, he's going to have to do it anyway. What's the justification at that time? That does not exist at this time. So I think it's inappropriate and unfair.
Is there a remedy for the applicant at the building permit process, Bruce?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure what you mean by a remedy.
So a remedy being, can they appeal? So Public Works says, the building people say you have to do this, what's the process then?
Well, I would start with, in this quasi-judicial proceeding, it's not clear to me that double jeopardy applies. In my, Madam Chair, I believe if there are standards that apply during the building permit process, they can be imposed. I can't speak to what those standards are, but if those standards exist outside, it's a separate process, and they can be applied. I believe they can be, and standards can be imposed.
So the applicant has no ability to to, what's the word, appeal or
there are rights to appeal, to challenge determinations.
all right, so their appeal process is built into that other process.
We can't, yes, there
All right.
definitely are.
That's just what I was concerned about, so, all right, thank you. Questions for, oh, and did Mr. Woodry, did you want to make any comments?
Well, it'd probably be best if I didn't make too many comments at this time, but I will anyway. I've owned the property about 50 years. I acquired it right after the property was acquired on the corner where the convenience store sits now. That's also owned by Video Acquisitions, Inc. I have talked to numerous people over the years about a zone change on there. Ever since it was rezoned the first time to EFU, which I thought was completely out of hand to put that little piece into an EFU zone surrounded by industrial. So I didn't go for a zone change because I didn't want to have to go through the kind of process that we're currently going through, where I'm hearing anyway that even though we've gone through this orderly process of getting a zone change, and we've done everything that we can to answer any questions about this property, that a property that will only accept about 10,000 square feet or 10,000 feet of building has so many parent things attached to it. And then to find out that after we've gone and spend a lot of, this first I've heard about having to redo this thing or getting a special waiver or something to allow us to put anything on that property without giving somebody some property doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I heard earlier that it wouldn't affect the size of the store that was built on, or the size of the building that was built on that property if in fact we dedicated that land to somebody. But that's not right, I don't believe. We're only allowed to have a certain percentage of building on that property. You take 10 feet away or 12 feet or whatever it is away from the front of that property, that reduces the amount of size of building I can put on the property. It impacts it tremendously. We've got as much cost in trying to get this rezoned as an average person would come in to have 4 acres rezoned or 40 acres rezoned. The cost of trying to put this little thing together is really kind of well, I don't know what the word would be for it. But my sons, who basically are taking over our corporation, want to have this property rezoned so that we can put a storage facility on it. We're not planning on putting a commercial building on it. We don't have room for a commercial building. We don't have room for parking. We're not going to add any water. We're not requiring anything that would require that. We have a business that we can utilize some of the property for ourselves for storage for our materials. We have a AA tent company, which we provide tents to county fairs, St. Paul Rodeo, things like that. We'll have a need in the future for some storage for that on site. we're not gonna use it for anything other than what we've been told we can put on it. And, like was pointed out, one of you pointed out, the property on the corner, to try to widen that whole road 10 feet down that side is gonna be almost impossible without tearing that store down. The county's even got its own, there's telephone poles and all kinds of things, signage and everything else that sits in that 10-foot right-of-way. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. That's my son wanting to know what's going on.
You can watch it on Facebook Live.
Oh, really? Facebook? So at any rate, you know, if we had to give away 10 feet or whatever it was, and I say give it away, it's here, donate it, I guess, just give it to somebody. We'd have to do the same thing on the store, I guess, if you're gonna widen that whole street down there. And if we do that, that's gonna wipe that store out. We're gonna have to tear off 20 feet of the store and move telephone poles and everything else. I might also add that even though that is a huge major intersection, we know the traffic count on it. The area that actually from that corner, from River Road on Brook Lake Road clear over to, what is it, Windsor Island Road or, no, that Wheatland Road, that gets very little traffic. That collector is that corner there gets it from 3 directions. It's coming out of the north, coming out of the south, and coming out of the east. Very little traffic goes west of that corner. To try to make that 20 feet, 30 feet wider, that highway would be a real waste of money, in my opinion. Now, I've lived in the area for 70-some years. I've owned the property for 50. And I guess that's all I have to say. It seems to me like an awful lot of whatever in order to get a very small project that has very little impact, as pointed out, in traffic and everything else. And to say that now that I have to go in and go through some other process to try to get a permit on this property is crazy. Would I have to go through another process to get a permit on the property if I put a house on it? Would I have to give somebody the property for that? Which would probably even have more impact on traffic than what we're gonna have now. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Woodry, I appreciate your frustration to get something done, and I know that sometimes that's difficult and hard as a property owner, and your comments. I do know also that, and I think you heard this earlier, when we look at that whole area in Brook Lake, and you know, from the freeway all the way west and east, that we've got a lot of potential development, including your place and others that are going to do this. And I'll just use, for example, May Trucking as an example wants to do some things, and we're going to have to require them to do various things and pay a certain percentage of that as they move forward. So there are things that happen that as we do construction and build things, that looking towards the future, that sometimes those happen. And
I understand.
And I would also say that as we move forward on this part of the process, that I wouldn't get too anxious or too worried about the next part of the process until we actually go there. But the other thing that I heard was Mr. Truss, you mentioned that the next property owner may not know about this land use. Well, this is a public record. They could always pull this permit and know that these things were coming on. And I also suggest that any property owner, before they actually go and design something, that they maybe go in and meet with our public works people and say, this is what our plan is. What concerns do you have up front, so that we can take those into consideration and ask them to put it in writing so that you can have some documentation for some of those things. So I think you'll get there. I just want to make those couple comments.
Commissioner, do you have any comments, questions? I'm going to save my comments for when staff comes back. So, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that that will conclude our presentation, and we'll be available for questions or rebuttal if that's necessary.
Great. Yeah, I'm not sure, because, do you want to come up then? Will we have him come up after staff makes their comments, or is that? Generally, we have the opponents, but we don't have opponents, and then we have rebuttal. And so I'm not exactly sure on the process.
That's, I think the chair has, there is some discretion, but
All
I
right.
think that is generally how it would work.
Okay. So if you think after Joe makes his comments that you want to make additional comments and a rebuttal, why don't you just signal me and we'll allow you to come back up. We'll
All right.
be flexible in our process here this morning.
Great, appreciate that, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Joe, any additional comments that you have?
I just wanted to verify what the property owner stated. If additional dedication was required, it would, because of the 40% lot coverage. I'm not sure how much frontage there is and what the required dedication would be, but it would reduce the size of the potential building on the property. So that is correct.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have at this point.
Any other questions for Joe, or? Yes, what?
Well, I have a suggestion, and that is, of course, I now understand that they're trying to maximize their building square footage based on the lot, size of the lot. So I understand that, and I do appreciate that. So I think one way we could get where we want to be, that is from Public Works perspective, and still accommodate the applicant, unless planning thinks this would not work otherwise, is that we could, they come in for building permits, they have their given lot area, and then we have them do a dedication right before they get their CO. That way, they get their building a permit approved for the existing lot size, and they take care of the dedication right at the tail end, which would satisfy us, and we get the right of way, and they get their building size based on the current lot size.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I would just advise for the board to be focused on what this
Right.
hearing
Right.
is about.
And that's just a comment I have, that's
Yeah.
all. It's not
All right.
about the zone change.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess I would just say from my own perspective, first of all, we are focused on this particular part of the process. But if there is case law saying that there needs to be a nexus in this part of the process, it very much concerns me that Public Works will say that we can do it because we can, as opposed to because we should, or because we have a legal right to do that. And so I would hope, first of all, I don't think it's just inappropriate, I think it's wrong, okay? And I think that you should have been at the hearing in the first place to make these arguments, and then the hearings officer makes that recommendation to us. So I find it somewhat troubling, probably more than somewhat, very troubling, that you're here today making these arguments to us instead of having made them in front of the hearings officer. So I would hope that the applicant would appeal to the board if in the next stage we violate the agreements that we have here today. I'll just say that, or that's my own personal perspective. So do we have any other comments or questions from commissioners?
No.
All right, so we would be looking at a motion to close the public hearing. What's that? Oh, did you want to make any rebuttal, by the way? No. Okay, thank you. We'd need a motion to close the public hearing to, what would we be doing here? We'd be adopting the comprehensive plan.
And conditions.
Close the public hearing. Approve the zone change comprehensive plan amendment, subject to conditions.
Subject to the conditions that are listed in the hearings officer's report.
It's my turn.
And it is your turn.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we close the public hearing and adopt the zone change comprehensive plan number 17-002, Video Acquisitions, Inc., clerk's file number 5737, with subject to conditions.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And that is approved. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes our business for today's hearing. I'm going to go ahead and read the Wednesday to Wednesday calendar. These are meetings where 2 or 3 commissioners will be present. We're just concluding our board session here at the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square. Today is Wednesday, January 3rd at noon. Today is the Woodburn-Marion County meeting at Luis's Taqueria, 523 Front Street in Woodburn. That will be followed by a tour of GEM equipment at 2150 Progress Way in Woodburn at 1:30. Tomorrow morning, Thursday, January 4th at 9:30 is the monthly department head elected officials meeting. That will be held in the Commissioners' Boardroom on the 5th floor here at Courthouse Square. At 1 o'clock, Thursday, January 4th, will be a work session on a new administrative policy for public records requests held in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor at Courthouse Square. And then at 2 o'clock, another work session on customer service, also in the Silverton Conference Room at Courthouse Square. Tuesday, January 9th at 7:30 in the morning is the State and Marion County breakfast meeting at the Covered Bridge Cafe, 510 North 3rd Avenue in Stayton. Tuesday, January 9th at 9 a.m. will be an executive session. Will be about the Public Utility Commission case pursuant to ORS 192-662F. That will be held in the Silverton Conference Room here at Courthouse Square. Also on Tuesday, January 9th at 10 will be a calendar review in the Silverton Conference Room. January 9th, Tuesday at 4 p.m. will be the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting in the Commissioner's Boardroom on the 5th floor at Courthouse Square, chaired by Commissioner Cameron. And then next Wednesday, January 10th at 9 a.m., the board will be back here in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street for our weekly Wednesday board session. So it's a new year. What are your resolutions? Anything?
I don't even try anymore. I don't.
I just keep doing it.
So I read an interesting article in the paper about that more people now, I mean, weight loss, exercise, dieting, those are all like kind of, you know, when they poll people
all
high
passe.
high
That's
on the
it.
list. But being a better person was the #1 New Year's resolution. And then they had all of these ethicists and philosophers that talked about, so how do you define being a better person? So, you want to give your ideas on what you think that would be?
Start with him.
How would I be a better person?
How would you be a better person?
Did they define it in the paper?
Well, in the paper, they talked about that some people think it's relative, rather than that there are kind of more standard moral standards, more immovable moral standards. So my own personal belief is that there are standards that are immovable and that I don't change. That they used an example about that. They said most people agree on the big ones. You shouldn't murder, you know, you should, those types of things. But on smaller ones about should you lie or should you steal? Well, people say I shouldn't steal, but then they're willing to take someone's password and go in and use their app for free or whatever, and they're not considering that stealing. So they adjust their moral compass depending on situational things, and that they also expect people who are close to them to be loyal, and if they expect loyalty, then that kind of changes their perspective on morals. So I just thought it was a fascinating article, so I just wanted to throw that out here since we have a few minutes to ponder this.
So, Madam Chair, so what you're saying is that, what I heard you say was that my son-in-law's Netflix account that is on one of my TVs that I use,
You gotta be ashamed.
I should be a better person by not using it, even though it allows you to have 2 different accounts going at, or 2 different TVs going at the same time. I should probably have my own I've been debating about that, because every once in a while he's got another friend that he lets use it, and I can't get in. And I'm really enthralled with this series that I've been watching.
I would just say let your conscience be your guide. So.
Okay, well, so far it hasn't bothered me, other than the inconvenience.
Doesn't bother your conscience, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, there's things that I think that I need to do better all the time. I mean, that's a life. I think that's a life story, is always trying to improve yourself. And the one thing about New Year's resolutions, I always look at every day as a new day, and I'm thankful for that. And you know, it's just another day. It just happens to change the calendar. I mean, if you think about it, today's what, the 3rd, right? Tomorrow's the 4th. If you think about it, it was 2017, it was 2000, it's another number that just changes, and then you can go all the way down to the clock. And so it's hard for me to make big New Year's resolutions. I think some of the things that I've struggled with in my life, diet, exercise, I've been able to kind of change those things in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's really helped. But it wasn't a New Year's resolution. It was just something that I got a hold of, and some people helped me with it. I think that's another thing is being accountable to others to make change. Yeah.
Do you want to throw any ideas into the hat?
Well, I've given up on all that. Just take me as I am, as I figure it now. But I do try to be sensitive and empathetic, if that's the right word. I don't want to blunder through and hurt anybody.
You know, I think it's interesting being a grandparent, and all of us here are grandparents now.
Oh, isn't that something?
Three commissioners at least. John has left. It is such, I don't even know how to describe it. If anyone could have said to me, being a grandparent is one of the most thrilling experiences you could ever have as a child, I would have gone, well, I have no idea. But I think the reason that there is such joy in being a grandparent is because you let go of some of the stress and the sort of the self-made rules and the things that you did as a parent, and you, at least for me, I fully enjoy and engage with my grandchildren. I see them as people. I get down on the floor with them. I love them constantly. I'm not constantly worried about whether they made a mess or whether the people in the grocery store are annoyed because they're making noise, or you know what I'm saying? Where when I was a parent, I was feeling like I was trying to have so many masters. And I think for me, being a better person means kind of going through those stages of life where kind of the blinders come off and you go, oh, here's my priority. You know what I'm saying? Rather than some of the self-imposed things that then make you maybe not be as nice as you should be. Or, you know, I have to admit, you know, there was more than one time that I was sharp with my children, you know, and
I can't believe that.
right, and I'm never sharp with my grandchildren, which is just so interesting. And it's not because of anything that I told myself to do. It's just a totally different feeling, you know. And so I just think that there's value in that as you move through life. To start, you do more self-discovery, and I think it helps anyway.
You didn't hear me, did you? I'd like to be on your
I tried not to hear you.
Okay,
I'm trying not to be sharp with you.
That's as good as I get. I do have a granddaughter coming February 2nd. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's 4, so I'll be pretty happy about that. And they're excited, which makes me excited.
Yeah.
They got a cat. The cat's got to
Yeah.
go, let's be honest.
Commissioner, I agree with you that about the grandkids. It's like, and having spent quite a bit of time with one of my grandsons lately, it is one of those things where I think I just default to say, well, that's not my role, right? I'm just here to enjoy his company and teach him what I can teach him, and I'm not gonna be the disciplinarian to say, no, you're gonna sit at the table right now because his mom's there or whatever. So it is different, and it is easier to let things go as you get older. What's really important.
And well, and you make your mistakes on your kids, and there are times when I think back on some of the things I did, and I'm thinking I'm amazed that my children turned out as well as they did. And yet, I guess making mistakes is the human condition, and we learn from those mistakes as we go through life as well. So, yeah, my other New Year's resolution is that I am going to relish each day of this year. This is my last year as a commissioner. I was thinking when I came in, it's January 3rd, so I have, 362 more days as a county
Well, like 50
commissioner.
board meetings.
Right, yeah, exactly. So that's a lot. I mean, over 300, so I am going to enjoy each one and make the most of it. Just like you were
We
talking
never know when our
I'd
last
like
day
to
is
say
gonna
I'll
be.
help, but I'm not sure.
about. Right. All right. Anything else that we want to add? You can talk about bowl games if you want. I didn't watch them, but they were on in my house. So.
I'm looking forward to a tour today at Gym Equipment. Ed McKinney's been such a great guy
Yes.
all the time, and I looked up on the internet what they do, you know, and it's a lot of whole like blanching equipment and big time operations. So it'll be fun to see how they make them.
Very good. Yeah, tell him hi for me.
I
I'm
will.
not going to be able to make that, but he has served faithfully on our Public
He's
Safety
always been
Coordinating Council
supportive.
for
Is this Ed's
many years.
business?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Jim, he's a business guy. All right, well, if there is no other business of the board, we will adjourn.